What's going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning into the podcast. My name is Zeke.
And I'm Gabe.
And we're just two dudes from church. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So today we have we're kind of brainstorming before the camera started rolling, and we started to think about that our Heavenly Father, we know his personal name to be Yahweh, has many titles, many attributes, and we in our lives we tend to tap into those titles. And today, I want to speak about one in particular because I feel like we both have, quite experienced this in our personal lives. And that is Yahweh Rapha, which means that he is our healer, And, when we think about he's our healer, we tend to immediately think that, oh, he's sick and now he's healed. But this is something much more. But today we wanted to kind of just dive into some experiences that we went through where we know Yahweh as Yahweh, but we learned to really know who Yahweh Rapha is in our lives. So I know, Gabe, you have we were talking about it before the camera started rolling about a moment where he showed up in your family in a tremendous way, and I've heard just a little bit about the testimony of what he did. Yeah, I'm gonna leave that up to you.
I know probably some people that are listening, you may have heard, my mother, my father's side of things. This is more coming from my perspective or kind of what I went through. And those that are not aware, I think this whole country dealt with the moment a couple years ago, the pandemic and all these things. Mm-hmm. That was tough for many families for many different reasons. A lot of people lost their jobs, lost loved ones, and all of these things. And those that know my family in those times, especially, it was a little earlier on before it really blew up. Mm-hmm. That was the scary part for me. Because we didn't really know what was going on. All I remember, I don't know if you were there, but there was a service we were having in the basement in Patterson, New Jersey. Okay. And I believe it was a men's conference or something like that. And we were helping play the music and all these things. And I remember my father was playing bass for that night. And then he started getting some discomfort, like his chest, and didn't start feeling good. And I remember he stepped away after. I went outside with him, and he kind of passed out. And it was a little scary because I didn't know what to do. So we got some people. We called the ambulance. I went with him to the hospital. They said he was fine. So there was nothing wrong with him. He was good. And then I remember probably, I don't know, about a week or two after that incident happened, my father was starting to get sick and wasn't feeling well and all these things. He went back to the hospital to get checked. And again, this is where we started hearing of certain things happening and certain people getting COVID and all these things. So you're starting to hear these things. So I remember getting a call from my mother and saying, oh, they say he has, oh man, what's it called?
Pneumonia.
Yeah,
I remember.
Yeah, so they said he had pneumonia. And pretty much what they did was they sent him home. They sent him back home.
Weird. It's like,
and my mom told me that, and I was like, that's strange. Why would they send him back home? And then my mom's like, well, and this was late at night. And I remember my brother telling me, because I wasn't there at the moment, my little brother told me, he's like, hey, we're going to go take dad to the hospital. Probably it was like 3 a.m, because he couldn't even get up to go to the bathroom. Not like it was hurting, so like it was bad. So they ended up taking him to the hospital and all these things. They finally run all these tests. They say it's double pneumonia and all these things.
Just got
and
worse.
yeah, and those that don't know my father has, high blood pressure, a lot of different things. And those that know what COVID did is, especially in those people that have already things or issues with them, it made it worse for them, for their immune system and all these things. So, trying to rush the story, but long story short, they finally say my dad has COVID.
Finally.
And it gets to, so we get a call, that he's in the hospital. They're not allowing anybody in. They're not allowing anyone to see. And again, this was a very difficult moment for me and my wife, because especially at that moment, we just our son was not that old yet, so he was still building an immune system. So it was a very difficult moment for me, because I wanted to be with my father, but then we didn't really know what was going on, that I didn't want to also put my son in a position that he can that harm can come to him. So it was very hard for me to try to balance everything out. And then so the best thing that we could do is we can FaceTime. So we FaceTime my dad, and he was in the hospital more than a week pretty much. And what hurt the most, I think, was my dad lost so much weight.
And that's scary.
Because this thing was really, and the pain that they said he was facing, my mother and all these things, and it hurt so bad, because I could not I could not see him. And then the doctor would tell my mother and these things that they don't know if he's going to make it. Like, it got to a point where they didn't know if he was going to make it. So now I'm getting to a point where I'm never going to see my dad again.
The thing is, you can't even visit him because of his condition.
I can't give him a hug again. I can't give him a kiss again. Like, there's nothing I can do. I can't embrace it. Like, it was a very, like, I try to hold my emotions well, because I didn't want to, me and my brother were trying to be there as much as we can for our mother, and trying to, but it was scary. It was a scary moment. I remember talking to my wife, and I remember in the middle of the night just crying and with my wife, and she would just console me, and it was hard, because like it's our parents, and I never want to see my father in that position again. And long story short, I remember my mother calling us and say, hey, I'm doing 2-3 days of fasting, and I'm going to get into serious prayer, and we're going to blow this up, and I'm going to do the doctor saying one thing, but we believe in Almighty King, that there's nothing impossible. And it was hard. We're honest here. We try to be as real as we can. It was hard.
No, because
my heart was with my father. My mind's like, you need to join, you need to fast, you need to pray. But like, I was trying to get in. I was trying to get fully in, and it's like your human emotions start to kick in, and it's like, I don't want to do this right now, because I just want to hug my dad and things. But I understood that we needed as much support as we could at that moment, and those that know, my mother, she went on Facebook, and she did lives, she would sing songs, and she would kind of speak more on her side of things, and keeping everyone up to date with what's going on. And I was behind the closed doors. I helped when I could, but I was doing my prayer. I joined in fastings and stuff like that, and it got to a point where I remember like it was yesterday. I was in my living room on my knees, crying like a baby, and crying out and saying, you've been good to us. You've never failed us. And as much as this hurts, let your will be done. Whatever the outcome is, let your will be done. If it's your will that you save my dad from that place, let your will be done. And that's what hurt me, because I didn't want to say those words, but it got to a point where my heart was like, let your will be done.
Yeah.
Right? You will do what you have to do. And let me tell you that after that campaign my mother did, and after all the people that joined along with us hand in hand and did it from all parts of the world and joined my mother and our family, you can ask my dad's side of it. He pretty much told you, he's like, he emotionally, he gave up. Yeah. He told me, he's like, he would have conversations like, is this it for me? Is this it? That he was having, because like I said, in that time, it's like nobody's coming in and out. He saw nobody.
Yeah. That's a mental. So
thing. That's his thing. So we're thinking this way. He's thinking he's never going to see us either. Yeah. So now you have these emotions that start coming to pass. And I remember part of his testimony was when that happened, the doctors was like, well, we don't know. But after that campaign kind of went through, they changed his nurse. And he'll tell you to this day, that nurse saved his life.
Wow. And
he'll say from this day, he's like, that was not no nurse, that was an angel.
Yeah.
Sent from above, because of all the nurses he could have got, she was a believer. She pretty much saw him in the bed, and he wasn't walking, he wasn't doing, he was just in the bed. She goes, no, Mr. Rosario, you're getting up. We're walking. Wow. We're doing this. You are not done here.
Get through it.
And he even says it like through a word she was used to pretty much tell him, your job's not done yet. You're not dying in this room. This isn't your final destination here. And let me tell you how things switched up after that campaign in such a way that probably a couple days after that switch, he was out.
That's insane.
So that tells you and it shows you that, like we're talking about today, he is Yahweh Rapha, right? He is the one who heals. He is the one that in the moments where we think it's impossible, in the moments where maybe the doctors say there's no chance, there's no way, he makes a way for us. But I truly believe it was with the step that my mother chose to make with the campaign, with the prayer, and the amount of support that our family was surrounded with was something that I can't say thank you enough to all those who joined, coming from a son to a father, and to see how when my father came out, it was also so difficult because I still couldn't give him a hug.
Yeah.
And it took a little bit. It wasn't that long, but it took a little bit to and I was talking to my wife, I was like, babe, I want to go see my dad.
And it's tough because you want it, but you can't.
So, and because it was so new yet, and it wasn't full blown, and we didn't know everything, so it was still like this gray area. It's like, oh, we don't know. And I remember the first time I got to hug my dad, and
you didn't want to let him go.
No, and even at that, it's just those that saw him come out, and the amount of weight that my father lost from this, and he looked like he was sick. Right, because he wasn't eating, he wasn't getting the right nutrients, and that's what was happening, and it was eating away at his body. But just to be able to hold him, to be able to hug him, to be able to still call him and say, hey pops, how you doing? You know, nowadays I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful that he's still with us. I'm so grateful that his time's not done. But again, like we've spoken about before, these are supernatural things that man can't understand, that the doctors go, wow, what switched in these couple days here? Because one day you're telling me that he's going to die, and in a couple of days he's out.
He's walking out.
So that's the great things that our Heavenly Father does, and that's
serve.
the amazing things that we look forward in our lives, and those are things that we hold and cherish, and I hold dear to my heart, and those things we cherish because of the strong woman my mother was, and the power that an army hand in hand together can create.
And your mom is a woman of prayer. Let me tell you. Like when she says she's gonna pray, she's gonna pray.
Yeah.
And I find it incredible, because even though this was a physical illness, he was actually going through this, whether it was coronavirus, the pneumonia, all that compiled in together, but it was causing this mental stress in your family. And you got through it through the prayer, through the fasting. Yahweh showed up and he showed out. I can only imagine your family's closer now. Your dad's a new man, and like, listen, like he said, you still got work to do.
Yeah, because
you still got work to do.
Because we see in that time that this happened, in those two-year span that all this was going on, there's a lot of people that weren't so lucky, right? And there's a lot of people that didn't have the privilege to see their loved ones again, to hug their loved ones again. So these are the moments that we cherish and we're grateful for. But my dad got a second wind and another opportunity to finish what he was created to do. And I know those that know my dad, he's a very committed, and when my dad has a goal, has a vision, he's going to accomplish it. Yeah, he's not going to stop till he does it. So he understands that his job's not done, and our Heavenly Father has given him another opportunity, and that's the beautiful thing. But like you said, this in this instance, it was a physical healing, but like you talked about earlier, there was also a lot of mental healing that needed to happen, especially with our family, especially as humans, the dark things that were coming into our head, like I said, you trap someone in a room and don't give them contact to anybody, it's going to do some things to you. And that's kind of what's happening, is this not being able to touch and not being able to feel. And as humans, we need that. We need that feel. We need that touch. So there was also a lot of healing that was done by Yahweh Rapha that had to happen to be able to overcome this instance in our family's lives. And I know there's many different ways that he can bring healing to our lives. Has there been something with you that you can think of? Yeah. Because we all have different testimonies, and we all have different experiences that we share. And that's kind of what we want to share with you guys today is it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter your walk. He's real, and this is the proof that we want to give to you that he does exist, and he does do healings to this day. He has not changed. Who has changed is us, right? So has there been something in your life?
I do have one in mind that I was thinking about, before the podcast. In my case, I would say it happened to me. The healing was for me. Now, it happened at a very young age, so it was one of those things like you remember key points in there. Mm-hmm. But if my mother was here, she can tell you the complete story, because I feel like my mother was the one that was, of course my father, but she was the one that really saw everything, all the doctor's appointment. And so when I was younger, I would say maybe by the age of 4 or 5, I developed this weird thing, like my feet, my hands, my face would like swell up, and it was kind of like, we didn't know what was going on. And so through many doctor visits and stuff like that, I remember hearing the word nephrotic syndrome. Now, I didn't know what that means. Was a little kid?
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I remember it because it was that impactful in my life that later in life I looked it up and I was like, whoa, that's crazy. But in a nutshell, what was happening to my body is I had a problem with my kidneys. Now, if basic biology, your kidneys produce protein, right? It stores protein for the body. So what was happening with me is that my kidneys weren't storing that protein, and you know that we need protein.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you need protein. So what was happening is that my body was discharging my protein, and it was, you know, we're gonna be real here, it was coming out in my urine. And they found that out, and it was kind of like, okay, what can we do? And the doctors told my parents, like, well, there's no cure for it. So the only thing we can do is put your son on some type of medication. It was like a steroid. And I remember it's like so vividly. It was like this long white tube, and there were these little sticks that every time I had to alter my diet. Now, you think about a 5-6-year-old, like, altering their diet, like, you have to take X amount of protein intake. You know, that's kind of traumatic, because you see kids eating ice cream and eating French fries.
My nuggets and burgers.
Yeah, I want my, so it was like, no, I had to eat straight protein because my body wasn't storing it. So I remember these little sticks, I would have to go to the bathroom. I would have to, essentially pee on the stick, and that would determine the amount of sodium my body had. And they would say, this is how much protein and this is how much sodium. If I had a high amount of sodium, I was at risk of essentially dying.
Okay.
To be straight up with you guys. So I remember it was like every time I had to use the bathroom, it's like my mom would remind me, hey, grab one of those. So it was like clockwork. And I would eat these like high protein, disgusting like meals. Just a funny moment. I remember I was always in and out of the hospital, because sometimes I had my highs, I had my lows. And I was one time laying in the hospital bed, and I was complaining to my dad. I was like, Dad, this hospital food is like horrible, like, because they adjust it according to the patient. So I had a really high protein, and then on hospital food is horrible, by the way. It's horrible. Y'all got to work on that. But on top of that, it had to be really high protein. And I remember I was crying to my dad. I was like, Poppy, I don't want this food. It's like horrible. So I remember my dad left, and my mom stayed with me for a little bit. So my dad's walking in, and he's looking like both ways, and he kind of gave my mom a break. My mom left the room, and my dad's like, mira, comete esta papita. And he got me these little McDonald's French fries. And I dogged them down. My mom came in.
Go dad.
Yeah, shout out to Dad. But he gave me the French fries, and I remember, I think my mom or the nurse saw it, and they like yelled at my dad, you're trying to kill your son. I'm like, at least he's gonna
don't go dad.
No, but it was that's a core memory in my mind. That's how severe it was, that people got upset with him, because they were like, yo, you're trying to kill your kid? And it's like, no, I'm just, my son's crying, So the steroid that would give me would there was a side effect called the moon face, where I was a skinny kid, but it would make my face like really pudgy.
Okay.
So if you look at all my pictures from like 3rd grade, 2nd grade, I had a really pudgy face. So it was even affecting my actual physical like self, not only, my kidneys.
Yeah.
So to make a long story short, we were always in and out of the hospital, but there came a point where those in-betweens got longer. I was at home for longer, and it would get better. And then there would get some days where, Mom, my feet are swollen. We'd have to make another trip, a couple days in the hospital, come back out. So there was no cure. The doctor straight up told my parents, like, there's no cure for this. And I only remember this because my mother told me. There was a service that they had in my old church in Middletown, and there was somebody preaching, and that day they were preaching about Yahweh Rapha. They were preaching about how Yahweh is our healer. And he made an altar call, and he said that whoever's in need of healing, like, come now, because he's gonna heal. He's gonna heal right now. Now, like I said, I only know this because my mother told me, because apparently I was sleeping. I was laying down.
Sounds all right.
I was probably like 7 years old, but them services be like mad long. But anyway, I was sleeping, so I remember my mother and my father, they picked me up and they brought me to the front, and they prayed for me while I was asleep. And I remember, I don't know if they brought me up or they brought me in the front bench, and he came over. The gentleman came over and prayed for me while I was there. And my mother was crying, and my father, and it was just like, it was a moment for them. And it was a moment of faith. And it's like, we're going to put our faith in you, Yahweh. You know, our son is sick. We need you to heal him. So fast forward, I was probably like 13 now, 13, 14. And I had to do routine checkups. You know, first it began every 3 months, then every 6 months, then every year. And then it became like every 2 years, whatever. So we went to one of those, checkups. Yeah. And I went with my dad. My mom couldn't go at the time because the hospital was like a good 40 minutes from our house. So my dad took me to the specialist, and I walked in, and the lady starts doing all the tests. I had to pee on the stick. They had to check my weight. They were doing scans of my body. It's very scary. So I remember waiting in the waiting room with my dad and just thinking, like, I remember this room. Like, I remember being wheeled into this room because I was extremely sick, and just thinking, like, wow. Like, it brought back bad memories. Like, I really don't want to be stuck here, man. And I was a young kid, like 13, 14. And I was like, I really don't want to come back here. So I remember the doctor called us back. She was a female doctor. And she started speaking to the both of us. Like, I want you both here, not just father. And I remember she said, out of 7 kids, it was some weird number. It was like, out of 7 kids who get this, I think the number was like 3. Like 3 of them like die, like straight up die. 2 of them out of the 7, I would say, or another 3, they pass puberty, and they essentially have it for the rest of their lives. They have to alter their diet. They have routine checkups and everything. And I remember her telling my dad, she had a weird accent. She goes, 1 out of 7 who get this outgrows it. Just magically outgrows it. And that one is your son. And I remember my dad just started crying and crying. And it was just like, I remember sitting there. I cried. And I was like, what are you trying to say? And she was like, we ran all the tests. We've been checking you for months, for years. And you show no signs of a disease that was if you looked at it on paper, it's like he's not going to make it. Yeah. And if he does, he's going to live a very rough life. A very, very rough life. And I remember when the doctor let us go, my dad couldn't wait. He didn't wait to get to the car. He called my mom. He goes, Marisol, everything is good. I could hear my mom crying. And it was one of those trips back home, even though it was a long trip. But it was like, wow. And at that moment, I knew like Yahweh a different way. I knew him as Yahweh Rapha. And I said, if he got me through this, he can get me through anything. Like, it was a good feeling to know that, like, I won't ever come here again. I'm never going to come here because it was so traumatic. It was so traumatic in my life. But like I said, my mom can really get into details. But those were the little core things that I picked up throughout the years of my testimony. Because, of course, being proud parents, they wanted to share that testimony. Like, no, Yahweh is real. Yeah. Like, and the key is the faith. Like, if we put our faith into Yahweh, like you guys did, You saw your father in one condition. You started hearing things from doctors. We hear things from doctors and we think automatically like, oh, that's it because they're professionals. Right. But we understand that who we serve is much greater than that. Is much, much greater than that. And it's that faith that we put into our Heavenly Father. Like, no, listen, your word says it. Like, you are our healer. And we need you to... Through this moment, we need you to glorify yourself, and all glory now goes to Him. I am here. Your Father is here because of Him. Yeah. Because of His hand. And you might be going through something. You're watching this, and it's like I said, it's not always physical. We hear a lot about mental illness. Mm-hmm. And you just got to put your faith in Him. He's the only one that can truly heal you. Heal your mind, heal your heart, your body. We just shared 2 examples of proof that when you put your faith in Yahweh, like that woman did, the scriptures talks about it. That woman in a multitude of people, just touched to him. She knew that he was in. She knew, and she heard about him, and she said, "I might not be able to get to him, but if I can at least just touch the hem." Mm-hmm. And out of all and that's the beauty of it. Out of all that multitude of people and all that chaos, Whether the Messiah was like, hold on, somebody just touched me. And his disciples was like, you're surrounded by people. Like, of course.
But it wasn't because he didn't just say someone touched me. He said someone took power from me. He's like, power left my body, right? And that's the power of faith. And I know maybe some people are listening. They're going, you guys sound crazy, but we're just showing. We just spoke about 2 examples of the many that I know many people have experienced, that many people have. But yes, the things that happen sometimes seem a little crazy to us, but it's hard to explain until you share those moments, or you've been through those moments that are tough, that maybe you feel are impossible. But these moments are moments that you're going to cherish forever, and they're going to make an imprint on your life that are going to excel you forward, because it's going to show you, like we spoke about, how real he can be. And it's going to show you that you are still in his notice. He wants the best for us. He wants us to continue on in this life if it's his will, right? And we speak about it in the Bible. That's why when I did that prayer, we talked about, it's like, I got to a point where I was like, let your will be done. Mm-hmm. And it was the hardest words I've had to say, because I'm pretty much saying, if my father dies, let your will be done. If he lives, let your will be done. But like you said, at the same time, everything is made to glorify our Heavenly Father. Amen. We were created by him. We were created for him. Everything that we do in this world that we live is for him. So even in those scary moments that maybe you're facing right now, even though the doctors may be telling you and your loved ones that you don't have much time left, that there's no, like they told you, there's no way out, there's no remedy, there's nothing they can do. Same way they told my father, you're gonna, like, and I've heard it from many stories from different people, you're gonna sit in this bed in this hospital and you're gonna die. There's nothing else left for you to do. Again, yes, our Heavenly Father has given the knowledge and the wisdom to these doctors. He has. But at the same time, like we've spoken about, when you show that faith, that's a different kind of faith. When you truly trust in him, and like we did, you move the needle, like your parents did. They moved the needle. You take that step, that action forward to move his hand. I promise you, you're going to see supernatural things happen. But you still got to believe that he can do it.
Yeah. And it's all about the faith. If you look at our stories, it was like, in both of our stories, the only option that seemed to be, was death. Mm-hmm. Was death. And even death, Yahweh showed up, showed out, Amen. And conquered. So there's nothing impossible for our Heavenly Father. Yep. Nothing impossible. He is Yahweh Rapha. He is our healer. He will always be our healer. If you're going through a tough time now, mentally, physically, whatever it may be, and you haven't given him a try yet, give him a try. Mm-hmm. And I can guarantee you with my eyes closed, I guarantee you he will show up. He will show out. Yes. So that being said, we want to encourage you guys to continue. Continue praying. If whatever you're going through, continue to pray. We're praying for you. We love you guys. If you found this video encouraging, hit that like button. Share the video. Listen, help us out here. All right. We love you guys. And again, thank you for tuning in. My name is Zeke.
And I'm Gabe.
And we're just two dudes from church. Peace.